Hi there, this is Smart Haddad here. So in this first lecture, I'm going to show you about the appliance that I have bought. So I have bought the Netgate 1100, which is the smallest appliance that Netgate they have to be able to configure it at home. So the same things that you can do it on this small appliance, you can do it on the big appliance. So this is the box that I got from Netgate, so you can see. And if I open it, you see inside of it, this is the Netgate appliance, and here you can see this is the adapter. So it comes with the plugs, European plugs, but also they give you, I think this is a British plug, and you will get also the USB cable. So if I take this Netgate and let's open it. So this is the small appliance that I bought. I'll show you in a moment from where I bought it. So this is the Netgate 1100. If we look on its back over here, so let me just put it close to the camera. You can see we have here the WAN, and we have here the LAN, and we have here the op, which is an optional. And of course we have two USB ports. So of course here you have some LEDs to show for you some information, and here you have the plug for the power adapter. So this appliance, I'm going to take it now, and I have to connect it and see how we can start configuring this appliance to work for me at home to be able to provide internet. So before I do that, I would like to show you a little bit about where I could buy this Netgate appliance, and to show you more information about what are the appliances that are available from Netgate using the pfSense Plus operating system. And I'm going to show you, if you want to take the official training from pfSense, how you can do that. It's available free of charge. So let's go directly to the internet and check the website of Netgate. So we go to Edge. And from here, I would go to, you have to go to netgate.com. So this is the main website for Netgate for the appliance that I have bought from. And you can see a lot of information here about Netgate, but what is important for me is to see the product. So you can see they have the pfSense Plus product, so this is the software. And they have also another one, which is TNSR. I don't know what is this exactly. I never tried it, but we are interested on the pfSense. So here you can see the appliances that we have. So let's have an overview about the appliances. So we scroll down a little bit here, and here they show you some information about how you can connect the pfSense. So we go to the, here we go. So this is the Netgate appliances. So you can see there is the Netgate 1100. This is what I have bought it. The price is about $189 depending on which country you are. It may vary a little bit. I bought it a bit more expensive than that here in Europe. And they have the Netgate 2100, 4100, 6100, and 7100 1U, and of course there are the bigger ones, so those are more to be used for the core networks. So I would say that if you have a small office, of course this is for home, huh? So, it can be on this for the small, very small office, but we'll see in a moment that it doesn't have the resources to be able to pass the traffic and to do the tasks that a normal device should do in a office. But the best, I would say, size is the 4100. I see a lot of people buying this 4100 Netgate, and they put it on their offices, and it works perfectly. Now, if you want to do some comparison about those devices, all of them, by the way, they are equipped with the pfSense Plus software, so with the operating system of pfSense. So if you want to make some comparison, you can see they give you some summary here. So that is used for home. That is for home pro, small branch office. That is the 4100, the Home Pro, Branch Small Office, New, Medium Office, and so forth. So here they give you all those information. You can read them. The most important part is to look about the CPU. So the CPU, each of the devices they have, the storage, how much storage they have, the memory. I think those are the most important. Of course, the network ports, if you want more ports or less ports, because, for example, this one does have only one WAN port. While I think the 4100, starting from the 4100, yes, from the 4100, they have two ports for WAN, so where you can do some high availability or failover for the WAN. And of course, you can read more what traffic it can do, to look for this one, how much traffic it can do. So for my home is much more than enough. You see, this is the 4100, about 4 gigabit per second it can do. So yeah, depending on where you are going to buy and to who you are going to buy. So please look at those specifications and then select the hardware that you want. Again, I'm using it at home, so that's why I bought that one, and also because of the price, because I don't want to pay a lot of money just for doing a free course. Now, the other thing that I want to show about, if you go to support over here, and you have the documentation, that's really amazing. Netgate give us documentation, and here you can see the documentation for pfSense. So you only go to the documentation of pfSense, and you really have a lot of documentation for almost everything you want to do on the pfSense. So for example, say that we want to see how to do the backup and recovery. You go for it, and then you have all those information. You can read them, you can see them, and then you can know how to do it. So for example, you have to go making backups in the graphical user interface. They show you step by step how you can do that. The way they wrote it is very nice. I have seen some other competitors, they have some type of documentation, but it's not as nice as this one. This is really nice, very clean, and then you can read what you want without any issue. Now, the other thing that I want to show you is about the training. Because pfSense or Netgate, they provide for you possibility to get certificates. And if you go down to here, so those are the courses that are available now. Actually, there is only one course at this moment which is available, which is pfSense Fundamental and Practical Application. This course is not yet live. The good thing is that you can study for free. So you can go to that course, and you go down here, and yeah, you can see that you have the curriculum, and over here you have the videos. You can just watch this video, and then they give you, for example, for the first chapter, Introduction to pfSense Plus, you watch this video, and then they give you those documentation. You can read them, so you can understand about this topic. Another one, which is the firewall interface, VIPs and rules. So you can watch this video, and then they give you also some documentation that you can read them. So yeah, this is the firewall interfaces, VIP and rules. So that's really nice also from Netgate to help people to be able to study and read the things that they want. Now for the exam, if you want to do the exam, here they mentioned about the exam. So if you want, you can read it, but it is you will have 60 minutes to complete the exam. You're required to have 75% or above in order to pass the exam. So actually there is 2 exams, if I'm not mistaken. One which is questions, so you have to answer questions, multiple choices questions, and one is a lab. So if you pass both of them, then you can pass the exam, and this can be done online, and it is only in English. So that's something to remember. Now, another thing that I read it here, that the certificate is available for 1 year, which is normally most of companies, they give it for 3 years, like Cisco, like MikroTik, but I'm not sure why the Netgate, they just give the certificate to be valid only for 1 year. So let me just check it if I can find it somewhere here. Here I read it. How long are the certificates from Netgate valid? Your certificates from Netgate are valid for 1 year. So you see, so every year you have to redo the exam, so your certificate can be valid again. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to show. Now let's go back to the lab to see what we have to do. Point number 1, connect your PC to the pfSense and put an IP of 192.168.1.2/24 to be able to configure the pfSense. Before I start doing that, let's have a look what we have now. So I have connected this one to the internet, the WAN. So I connected to the ISP that I have at home, and it will give IP address from DHCP. So this one will have an IP from the DHCP server from the ISP router. And then I connect this one, the LAN, to my computer. Now to be able to configure the pfSense, the pfSense LAN comes with an IP of 192.168.1.1. That is the default IP that it comes on this interface. So I need to put from the same range of this IP on my computer. So I'm going to put 192.168.1.2, and then I'm going to make ping to the pfSense router to see if it is answering. And then I'm going to log to the web interface of the pfSense to be able to configure it, because pfSense the best way to configure it is using the web interface. We can configure it with the command line if we want, but with the web interface is much faster and much easier. So let's directly go to the computer and put an IP address of 192.168.1.2 on my network interface card. So we go to the network interface on my computer. Let's check which interface it is. I think, because I do have two interfaces on my computer, so I think this is the one. This is the one that I'm using. So if I go to properties, before I go to property, if we look to the status and the details, I see that it has already received an IP from the pfSense because the DHCP is enabled on the LAN interface. So there is already an IP of 192.168.1.100. So you don't really need to put now an IP anymore on that interface. But if you want, you can. But first, let me just check if I have ping to the pfSense Netgate router. So this is the ping. I will go to here and I will say ping to 192.168.1.1. Here we go. So I have the ping reply working. So actually we don't really need anymore to put the IP because it has received an IP from the DHCP server from the pfSense. So what does it mean here? If we go back to the picture, so this is what I have now, how it looks like. So I do have now, from this interface, there is a DHCP server giving IP addresses automatically to anyone connected to it. So it has given an IP to this computer of 192.168.1.100. So I don't really need to put any more 192.168.1.2 on this PC. If you want, you can, but it's not necessarily anymore. So now that means I can connect to the pfSense Netgate device and I have to start making the configuration. Point number one is done. So actually we didn't have to put the IP because it has received an IP automatically. So now make the initial setup on the pfSense. Let's go to the browser and let's open. So this is the first now access to the pfSense. So I'll go to the Edge and let's open 192.168.1.1, which is the IP of the pfSense Netgate 1100 router. So here you will get some error. That's fine. You can continue. And here we go. So we are now on the router. By default, the username and password for pfSense always comes as admin and password pfSense, all small letters. So you don't have to put capital letters. And then next. So here we go. Yeah, we are there. Now, of course, they said you can change the admin account. I'm gonna not do that now, so that's fine for me. I will leave it as it is by default, but you can do it, of course, if you want. Now we have to say next. So here they say that Netgate global support is available 24 hours, 7 days a week, giving you some information. Okay, fine, next. Now, what you want to name your router, by default it is pfSense. I will leave it like it is. So also the domain name, I'm gonna say home.local. Now the DNS, what DNS you want to use? I'm going to use the public DNS from Google and from Cloudflare. So those I can use them. Now you have here this option, override DNS. What does it mean? This means that allow DNS servers to be overridden by the DHCP PPP on WAN. So that means if your ISP is giving you DNS to the router, then even though that you put here that you want those DNS to be the one that to be used, but then the ISP DNS would be installed on your router, not anymore those ones. So that means if your ISP DNS is being provided with the DHCP on your WAN interface, then those one will be used and not those one. I'm gonna uncheck it. I want to use only that one and not the one for the ISP. And then I will say here, okay, and then now they say here put the time server. So for the Netgate appliance to get timing. So I'm gonna use I'm in the Amsterdam here, Europe. So I'm gonna use that one, the time zone of Europe, Amsterdam. Next, of course, if you are in another country, then you put your country there. Now on the WAN interface, remember we have, if we go back here, we have one side which is WAN and one side which is LAN. So on the WAN interface, How are you getting the information, the IP address and stuff like that? Is it by DHCP or by PPPoE or static or point-to-point tunneling protocol, PPTP? So this is what your provider should tell you. They say that you are going to get IP from DHCP or PPPoE or whatever. So in my case, it is DHCP. So once you do the DHCP, then you don't need to do anything more. You just click on DHCP. In case, for example, you say static, that means the ISP is giving you IP address and you have to put it statically on the interface on the WAN. You can see that this static here will be open to put the information. If I say PPPoE, then the static will be closed, and then we see that the PPPoE will be open here to put the information for the PPPoE. So in my case, it is DHCP. I will say here DHCP, and then we scroll down over here. That is very important part. If you want to block the RFC 1918 and to block the bogon networks. So the RFC 1918, those are the private IP addresses like 192.168.172.16 until 31, 10. something. So those are what are called the private IP addresses. Normally on the WAN interface, those private IP addresses should not come. That's why they say if you want to block them, because on the WAN, it should be public IP. Unless your ISP does not give you public IP, then they use private IP. So in my case, my ISP is giving me private IP addresses, not public. So if I block that on my WAN interface, then I will never have internet, because I'm receiving private IPs from the ISP and they're doing that on their side. Then in this case, I will never have internet. So what I need to do, I just have to uncheck it. The bogons are some networks that should not shown on the WAN. Otherwise, someone would be doing attacks to your router. So something like 0.0.0.0/0. This never should come to your WAN, or 127.0.0.1, which is loopback IP address. This should never show on your WAN. Or some multicast address. So there are a list of addresses, we call them bogon. Those should never show on the WAN. Now, as being a lab now, I will uncheck it. But you can check it if you want. If you are putting this for your customer, you can check it. Also, if your ISP is giving you public IP address, please check that one, because then you will have some filter rules blocking those networks. But for me, as being a lab, I will keep them open, and then I will say next. Now, what is the IP you want to the LAN? Remember, we said on the LAN interface, you will get an IP from the range 192.168.1.1. That's why I could connect to it. You can see it over here. But you can change that if you want. So it depends on your design. I'm going to leave it as it is. So next. Now, what password do you want to put for the admin? Yeah, I'll make it simple. 123456, 123456. Just to make it simple. So this is the password that I have put for the admin. When you implement this to your customer at home, please put a very strong password and not a simple one. I'm just doing simple because this is a lab now. Next. Now I will say here reload. Now my Netgate 1100 is being reloaded, and then we have to see if we are able to get connected to the internet from my computer. So now my Netgate has been fully reloaded, so that is configured now. Let's check if we can do some update for the pfSense. If it doesn't work right away, that's not a problem, because we have to wait until it is possibly fully loaded. So here we go. So we have now the router connected to the internet, actually, because otherwise it will not be able to retrieve if there is any update on the operating system of the pfSense Plus. If you want to check if there is internet on this router already, so because this is taking long, maybe we can go to diagnostic, and I will go to the ping. And I will ping 8.8.8.8 to see if this Netgate is now connected to the internet. And I will make enter. Here we go. It is connected to the internet. Let's check if Google it is working. So we know that the DNS is also working on this router, and it is working. You can see we have reply. So 3 packets transmitted, 3 packets received, 0 packet lost. So it is working perfectly. Now let's go back to the system, and I want to check the update again. because it's very important that you always update your pfSense appliance, the operating system of the pfSense to the latest version. So I will leave that open now to see. I'm not sure why it is taking too long, but I will leave it now open. And let's check if my computer is now connected to the internet. Because what happens now is that first let's check. So we have now the latest version, so it's up to date. We don't need to update the operating system, so the pfSense is up to date on 22.05. Very good. Now let's go to the computer and see if we have internet. So from here, I will try to ping 8.8.8.8. So here we go. We do have internet. So we are able to go to the internet. If I make trace route to 8.8.8.8, we can see it's going to pfSense, and then it's going to the internet. So if we look here on the firewall, we can see that the firewall has created a NAT. So you can see it has NATed. This is for the IPsec. We don't care about it, but this one is important. So it has NATed the private IP to go to the WAN to be able to go to the internet. So what's going to happen here, if I show you here now, so we have here the private IP, which is coming from this computer. I want to go to the internet. So it comes to the router. The router say, hey, you are private, you can't go. So I have a NAT. I will translate you. So NAT is network address translation. I will translate you with my IP, which is over here, to go to the internet. So it uses this IP and it goes to the ISP. Now, of course, because also this IP over here is private, as I said to you, then over here, the ISP router should have here also NAT, and it will NAT this IP to go to public, so it can go to the 8.8.8.8, because at the end, there should be a public IP address to go to the internet. Otherwise, the private IP will never go to the internet. So this is already here configured. You can see this address is being NATed on the WAN address. You can see NAT address, WAN address. And also if we go to the firewall, we go to the rules, because as I said, there is a firewall as well. You can see that as well that it has created some filter rules. The first rule, it is to allow me to connect to the browser to be able to configure it. So on port 80 and port 443. So this, if I didn't have this rule, I couldn't connect to what I am now on this browser to configure the router. And then we see that there is another rule to say to allow the traffic coming from the LAN net, which is my computer, to allow it to go to anywhere. So that means to the internet. Then this one allowed that. If I didn't have the second one, then I wouldn't be able to have internet at my computer. Of course, the last one is for the IP version 6. In case you are using IP version 6, we are not using on our LAN the IP version 6. So now we have, this is working. Now, of course, we have to start doing some more steps to make it work better. Point number 2 is done, and with this point I have configured already the Netgate 1100. You can see it's step by step. You don't have to do a lot of things, and then it is working. We can see that the pfSense now is providing me internet to my computer. Now on the pfSense there is another port called opt1. So I want to see how, if I connect my computer to that port, also to be able to have internet. So that is all what I wanted to show you in this lecture. I hope it was informative for you, and I'll see you in the upcoming lecture.